Hello everyone. So today we are covering one of the most important topics for UGC NET paper, the last lines of famous novels. For each one, I'll give you the line, author, year, genre, and a quick explanation so that everything you need for your revision. Okay, without wasting much time, let us start our class. So the first ending line is you must go on, I cannot go on, I'll go on. Okay, so this is your first ending line. And this line is taken from The Unnameable. Okay, it is written in 1953 and written by Samuel Beckett. So you should know about this fact. And this is the final part of Beckett's trilogy. We have also given you the class on trilogy. So go and check that trilogy class as well. And in this novel, the writer is exploring identity dissolution. Okay, so it is based on identity, existential crisis, through a voice that cannot stop speaking, even as it claims it cannot continue. Okay, so there is a voice which is so talkative, like you can see the another work, Waiting for Godot. Similarly, this work, The Unnameable. Okay, there is only a voice which is not recognizable. It has no name, but yes, it is very talkative. Okay. So I'll tell you about the trilogy. The first it is written is Molloy, okay, written in 1951. The second is Malone Dies, and third is this Unnameable, and it was written in 1951. Okay, so this is a trilogy of Samuel Beckett. Now let's move to next question. The next we have He Loved Big Brother, and you know very well that Big Brother, it is in our 1984. That is written by George Orwell and written in 1949. It is a dystopian novel, or you can say a political fiction, and it depicts a totalitarian future where the party controls truth, language, and even love. And this is the ending where we have a character, Vincent, which completes psychological surrender to those political group. Okay, so this is our ending, and finally he loved Big Brother, and there is also one Big Brother is watching you. So this is the ending line. The next we have the creature outside looked from pig to man, and from man to pig, and from pig to man again, but already it was impossible to say which was which. Okay, look at the contrast of this line. First he said, look from pig to man, then man to pig, again pig to man. Okay, and you know very well that the pig theory, or you can say this kind of words, is used by George Orwell in Animal Farm, which is written in 1945. Again, it is political allegory. Okay, and in Animal Farm, he uses a farm animal. Why? To satirize whom? To satirize Russian Revolution. So you should know about this fact. Okay, and this ending with the pigs becoming indistinguishable from the human oppressor they replaced. So actually pigs are oppressor. Okay, they oppressed normal people. Now the next we have, so we beat on boats against the current, borne back ceaselessly into the past. He was moving to past. That is, it is telling about the hollowness of life. And the hollowness of life is presented by F. Scott Fitzgerald in The Great Gatsby. Okay, so this is the line, ending line of The Great Gatsby, which is written in 1920. And you know very well that this is a modernist novel which is set in Judge Age. And it is, this line is narrated by Nick Carraway. Okay, who spoke this line? Nick Carraway. We have this character, and he was chronicling to J. Gatsby. This is another character, and his obsessive pursuit of wealth and his lost love. Who is the lover of J. Gatsby? None other than Daisy Buchanan. So this novel critiques the hollowness of the American dream. Okay, I am telling you about the past, that is hollowness of life, and this hollowness is talking about the American dream. And this famous closing line broadens Gatsby's personal tragedy into a universal statement. That is, he says that humanity is always reaching for an idealized future, okay, while we are being dragged backward by our own past. And that is, we want to move forward, but our past is so dark, our expectation is so high that we are dragging again and again into the past. So this is considered one of the most beautiful closing sentence in American literature. So this is important line. The next we have, the offing was barred by a black bank of clouds, and the tranquil waterway leading to the uttermost ends of the earth flowed somber under an overcast sky, seemed to lead into the heart of immense darkness. Now, I think you can have a clue. Heart of immense darkness. So, this is taken from Heart of Darkness, which is written in 1902, written by Joseph Conrad. Okay, and this is actually a colonial era. It is a form of novella which is following Marlowe's journey to the Congo River. Okay, and this is very important. The opening line and ending line of Heart of Darkness is important. You have to do this novel. Okay, you must actually, not have to, but you must. And there is a Ivory Trader. We have a Kurds in last he says. Okay, and this novel is exposing the brutality and moral corruption hidden beneath European imperialism, civilized society, so-called civilized society. And this final line echoes the novel's own title, okay, The Heart of Darkness. And it reinforces that the darkness is not the African continent, it is the darkness within colonial human nature itself. So it is talking about the human nature darkness. Okay, the next. And yes, I said yes, I will yes. There is a repetition of yes. So this is taken from Ulysses and it is written in 1920, James Joyce. Okay, and this is a modernist novel and it reimagines to Homer's Odyssey across a single day in Dublin. So setting is a single day and it is talking about Dublin life. You know very well that James Joyce, the setting of his novel and work are mostly Dublin. Okay, and the writer is famous for stream of consciousness technique. And this novel ends with Molloy Bloom, the character, unpunctuated internal monologue. So this line is actually presented the interior monologue. Okay, and she is recalling her courtship and affirming love and life itself. So the repeated yes, I am telling you about that. This yes is repeated. So this repeated yes is one of the literature most famous expression of affirmation, of positivity. Okay, and this ending the novel on a note of vitality rather than despair. So the novel ends in a positive tone. The next we have Old Father, Old Artificer, Stand Me Now, and Ever in a Good. So these lines are taken from James Joyce, another work, A Portrait of Artist as a Young Man, written in 1960. It is a Bindexroman tracing Stephen Dedler's intellectual and religious awakening. Okay, so we have the main character Stephen Dedler, and this character is also important. So you have to keep this the name of this character in your mind. This is a Bindexroman. Okay, and it tells you about the awakening as he grows from a child into a young artist. So this is what we call Bindexroman. Okay, and he rejects family, church, nation, and he wants to feel the art freely. So the closing line is addressed to his mythological namesake Dedler. Okay, so this is mythological name. So this last line is symbolizing his mythological name. Dedler means a prayer for guidance as he leaves Ireland for exile, making his final declaration of creative independence. As you know about the story very well. Okay, so now these works are not important for the point of view ending lines, but yes, they are important for your paper as well. If you have not done these works, so go and have a look on the works, summary, synopsis, main characters. Okay, away, alone, a last, a loved, a longed. Now look at the complexity of this last line. So it is written by again James Joyce, and this is famous line of Finnegan's Wake in 19. Okay, it is an experimental modernist novel. So you should know it is an experimental modernist novel, and it is known for its dense wordplay and dream logic. As you can see here, away, alone, a last, a loved, alone. So this is a wordplay. Okay, and this is final line, and it is actually an incomplete sentence. As you can see, there is a no full stop, there is a no another word. So this is incomplete sentence which is designed to loop directly into the novel's opening word, river run. So the opening word is river run. Okay, so this is the opening. Just keep this in mind. If you find any river run, so just click on the phenogram way. So opening line is river run, and last we have the longer. So he wants there should be a loop of opening and ending and a complete novel. Okay, and making a book a continuous circle with a no true beginning, no true end. So it is actually mirroring the cyclical nature of history. So you should know the cyclical nature of history and river. The name of river is Liffey, that runs through the next. Okay, the next we have, yes, she thought, laying down her brush in extreme fatigue, I have had my vision. So this kind of lines is, so if you know about the works and if you have any options, like I have not included options because it takes a lot of time. So laying down her brush in extreme fatigue. So this is line is, so this line is actually for Lily Bricos. Now, who knows about the Lily Briscoe? He or she will know the fact that this is taken from To the Lighthouse. This is the ending line. As you know, To the Lighthouse is a modernist novel, and you will find here stream of consciousness. If we have Virginia Woolf and we do not have stream of consciousness, can't be possible. So it explores time, memory, and loss. Across we have, there is a 3 sections. Okay, and it was centered on Ramsay family and the unfulfilled trip to a lighthouse. So the novel ends with the painter Lily Briscoe finally completing her long unfinished painting and a moment representing artistic and emotional resolution. As you know, what that Virginia Woolf she depicted Mrs. Ramsay, who died early in the novel. Okay, and Lily Briscoe, she wanted to make a painting which looks alike, and it took near around 27 years to complete this painting. Okay, so this is symbolism. Next we have, yes, I said, isn't it pretty to think? So this is taken from Ernest Hemingway, The Sun Also Rises, and it is written in 1926. This is a modernist novel portraying the disillusioned, lost generation. Okay, and we have post-war I Europe. This is a setting, and it is following the Jake Barnes and his unfulfilled love for Lady Brattleshley. So main character we have Jake Barnes, and lover is Lady Brat Ashley. Okay, so this closing line is actually an exchange and responding to a fantasy of what could have been captured the novel's center tone of irony, and happiness is acknowledged as a pleasant fiction, not a reality. Okay, so this is your ending line because he is raising question. That's why happiness is acknowledged as a pleasant fiction, not as a reality. Okay, the next we have, after a while, I went out and left the hospital and walked back to the hotel in the rain. And the hotel in the rain, if you know about little bit synopsis of works, so it is taken from A Farewell to Arms, and it was written in 1929, written by Ernest Hemingway. Okay, so this is a war and a modernist novel following an American soldier. What is the name? That is Frederick Henry, and his love affair with that nurse during the World War I. So the setting is World War I. This is your PYQ, and it is ending in devastating personal loss because the lover died. And he has also given here iceberg theory. So do not forget this theory of understatement, and the ending offers so emotional outburst. It was just flat and quick action. Okay, so and this ending line, it making the grief which feels even heavier, though what is left unsaid. He didn't say a lot, but his action speaks everything which is inside his mind. But his action spoke everything what was happening at that time inside his mind. Okay, the next we have, the old man was dreaming about the lions. So this is actually symbolism. Lions present strength. Lions present your power. So this old man, he is actually thinking about his youth. And you know what, there is the old man, the famous old man in our work. and he is none other than taken from The Old Man and Sea, written in 1952. And who wrote this work? Ernest Hemingway. Okay? There is the name of this old man is Santiago. There is a fish which name is marlin, PYQ. Okay, and there is an exhausting battle with a giant marlin, which is ultimately destroyed by sharks in last. Okay, so this closing image where he is saying he is dreaming about the lions, it is a memory from his youth, and which is symbolizing his physical defeat, not his inner strength defeat, but his physical defeat and his dignity. Okay, the next we have, I am thinking of aurochs and angels, the secret of durable pigments, prophetic sonnets, the refusal of art. And this is the only immortality you and I may share. My Lolita is very famous character. Okay, and this is written by Vladimir Nabokov, and the name of the work is Lolita, written in 1955. Okay, so this is actually controversial modernist novel which is narrated by Humbert. Who is the narrator? Humbert is the narrator, whose obsessive and predatory relationship with a young girl is recounted in highly stylized and seductive prose. So that's why it is very controversial. And the ending reveals he was reframing his own story as a work of art, which means to great Lolita, immortality through writing. So actually this is his obsessiveness. So this work shows him is aestheticizing and possessing for this lady, and this last line is the fine example of his possessiveness, of his seducingness towards this Lolita. Okay, so the next we have, one bird said to Billy Pilgrim, Pooh, Tivit. Billy Pilgrim is a character in Slaughter, written in 1969 by Kurt Vonnegut. Okay, it is a postmodern. Till now we have covered modernist novel. Now this is a postmodern anti-war novel. You should know about the genre, blending science fiction with World War II trauma. Okay, and there is a firebombing of Dresden, as you know the name, and it is following the Unstuck in time when Billy Pilgrim was there. So after pages of horror, and the novel ends with an absurd, meaningless, this bird call. So this is actually symbolism. Here Kurt Vonnegut, he wants to show that there is ultimately nothing intelligent to say about a massacre, about a war. Okay, so there is no good opinion on war, on world war. Okay, so he just used a bird call, a meaningless bird call, to present his idea that nothing matters, do whatever you are doing. The next we have, but I reckon I go to light out for the territory ahead of the rest, because Aunt Sally, okay, she is going to adopt me and civilize me, and I can't stand it. I've been there before. And Aunt Silly, she is the character in The Adventure of Huckleberry Finn, written by Mark Twain in 1885, and the fine example of realism. So this is American realist novel following the Huckleberry Finn's journey on the Mississippi River, you know very well, with the runaway slave. Who is the name? What is the name of slave? It is Jim, and it is critiquing slavery and civilized. Okay, so it is talking about slavery and civilized society through Huck evolving modern conscience. So the ending shows Huckleberry rejecting domestication and civilizing altogether. So this is actually satire, this spelling he used. So choosing freedom and the frontier. So a defining statement of American individualism. Okay, if you know the character a little bit about the story, so you can have a clue as well. The next we have, don't ever tell anybody anything. If you do, you start missing everybody. So don't try to chase anyone. And it is taken from The Catcher in the Rye, written in 1951 by J.D. Salinger. Okay, and this is a fine example of coming of age novel. Okay, and it is a modernist novel following the alienated teaser. The name of teenager is Holden Caulfield. So this is our main character, and over a few days he was living in New York City after leaving his prep school. So after a novel defined by cynicism, so you will find here cynicism and emotional guardedness, and this closing line is very rare and genuine moment of vulnerability. Don't you ever tell anybody anything. If you do, so you start missing everybody. Okay, so don't try to overshare your emotions, overshare your plans. So Holden finally admits that connection, even painful connection, matters to him. Okay, so this line, I think personally I like this line. For everything to be consummated, for me to feel less alone, I had only to wish that there be a large crowd of spectators the day of my execution, and they greet me with cries of hate. If you can correlate this word, for me to feel less alone, it means the narrator is talking about the existential crisis or the alienation, isolation. And he wants that there should be a large crowd. Okay, so this is a fine example of existentialist novel. You can say absurdist novel, and it is The Stranger, written in 1942 by Albert Camus. Okay, and the story is about Mirasol. This is the name of character. He is a man who kills almost without reason, and he is sentenced to death, and he is narrated in a flat and detached tone, because this novel is an example of existentialism. So there is no one who is going to take care of him. So this ending shows his final embracing the universe, indifference to human life, that there is a person who has everything. Now look at me, I do not have anything. Okay, so he wants to find peace in the idea that even hatred from a crowd would affirm that his life is however absurd and meaning to others. So in the last he said, okay, hate me, but be with me. Okay, look at me. Now the next line, it is a little bit large line, but we have to do. He knew what those jubilant crowds did not know but could have learned from books, that the plague bacillus never dies or disappears for good. Okay, so it is talking about plague bacillus. This is the first point. That it can lie dormant for years and years in furniture and linen chest. That it bides its time in bedrooms, cellars, trunks, and bookshelves. And that perhaps the day would come when, for the bane and then lighting of light men, it would rouse up its rat again and send them forth to die in a happy city. Okay, so these lines is actually taken from The Plague, and it is written by Albert Camus. Okay, if you know about, he's talking about the plague and all the scene of the plague. Okay, and it was written in 1940. So it is actually an allegorical work, existential novel in which a plague isolates the Algerian city of Oran. So setting is Oran. This is the city of Algeria city, and it was testing the resilience and solidarity of its citizens. So this final line is a deliberate warning, evil or suffering, which is actually symbolized by the plague bacillus, so never truly disappear. So they lie dormant and they will inevitably return, a statement widely read as a comment on the resurgence of fascism. So this is comment on fascism and on plague. Okay. The next we have, like a dog, he said it was as if the shame of it must outlive him. Okay, and you know very well, this is a very famous line. Trial, written in 1925. Okay, so this is a absurdist novel, modernist novel, where we have the main character Joseph K. He is arrested and prosecuted by an opaque, incomprehensible legal system for a crime which he never committed. So this novel ends with his sudden and brutal execution, and carried out passively, almost all bureaucracy and the ultimate expression of Kafka's. Okay, so we have, there is a term, Kafka's dehumanization under faceless authority. So it is actually a satire on bureaucracy, that a common man, an innocent person, he was executed because of that. So like a dog, he said it was as if the shame outlive him. So this is a satire on bureaucracy, and he is presented them as a dog. The next we have, but that is the beginning of a new story, the story of a gradual renewal of a man, the story of his gradual regeneration, of his passing from one word into another, of his intimation, of his initiation into a new unknown life that might be the subject of a new story, but our present story is ended. Okay, so this is a famous line, our present story is ended. Okay, so in this line, this is the last line, written by Fyodor Dostoevsky, and is taken from Crime and Punishment. It was written in 1866. So it is actually a psychological realist novel. It is following. We have the main character is Raskolnikov. He is actually a poor student who murders a pawnbroker. Okay, who murders a pawnbroker. So who is pawnbroker? A person who lends money to people when they leave something of a value with them in exchange of something. So they are called pawnbroker. Okay, so he killed that person. And he is tormented by guilt before eventually confessing that he murdered. And this ending gesture towards a future story of moral regeneration through the love of Sonia, the another character. It was suggesting the redemption is possible. But the writer, he deliberately leaves that future story untold and closing only the story of crime itself. So in this line, he is talking about the guilt of Raskolnikov. Okay. Next we have, I shall feel proud and satisfied to have been the first author to enjoy the full fruit of his writings, as I desired, because my only desire has been to make man hate those false, absurd histories in Book of Chivalry, which thanks to the exploits to my real Don Quixote are even now tottering and without any doubt will soon tremble to ground favor. So we have the character Don Quixote. So this is taken from the work Don Quixote written by Miguel de Cervantes, and it is written in 1605. It is a picaresque satirical novel, widely considered as one of the first modern novel, and it is following the delusional. We have a Delilu. There is a delusional knight, Don Quixote, who sets out an absurd chivalric adventure. So this is the final line where Cervantes breaks the fictional frame entirely and speaks directly as the author, and stating that purpose of this is to write to destroy the popularity of chivalric romance novel. Okay, so it is actually a satire on the romances, chivalric romances, and it is very metafictional ending so far as the 17th century work is concerned. He was soon borne away by waves and lost in darkness and distance. Okay, so if you know that this work, that this is the last line taken from the Frankenstein and written by Mary Shelley, written in 1818. So you know that Frankenstein is a Gothic romantic novel and exploring the danger of unchecked scientific ambition through our Victor Frankenstein. And there is a creature he creates and abundance, and where he abundance and lost in darkness and distance. So this novel ends with the creature drifting away on an ice floe after Victor's death. When this Victor died, this monster, he was deeply hearted. And so this line is fitting for a being who never truly belonged to either the human or a natural world. Okay, he creates the monster and then he died. Okay, because of that monster. I lingered round then under that benign sky, watched the mouth fluttering among the heat and hair bells, listened to the soft wind breathing through the grass, and wondered how anyone could ever imagine unquiet slumbers for the sleepers in that quiet earth. So the important thing is that slumbers for the sleepers in that quiet earth. This is your clue point. It is taken from Wuthering Height. Okay, and written by Emily Bronte in 1840. Again, a Gothic romantic novel, and it is telling about the destructive and obsessive love between Heathcliff and we have Heathcliff and Catherine across two generations of Yorkshire male. Okay, so after a story which is full of cruelty, revenge, and haunting, the ending offers an ironic, peaceful image of the graves, and nature is calm, seemingly at odds with the turbulence. Sometimes we have to cram some words to get the idea. Okay, but in spite of these deficiencies, okay, we have so many deficiencies, but after the whole, the wishes, the hopes, the confidence, the predictions of small band of true friends who witnessed the ceremony were fully answered in the perfect happiness of the union, written by Jane Austen. And the name of this work is Emma, 1860. You know very well, Pride and Prejudice, the opening line is important and Emma's ending line is important. Okay, and it is written in 1816. Jane Austen trilogy is very important. So this work is actually a comedy of manner, just following Emma's Woodhouse, a well-meaning but meddling young matchmaker who must learn from her own romantic misjudgment. You know what? She is a matchmaker. Okay. And before finding love herself, she could not find for her good lover, but she is a matchmaker. So this ending delivers the genre's traditional resolution that marriage and affirming social harmony after a novel of misunderstanding and self-discovery. That you should first choose for yourself, then you need to choose for another one. It is a far better thing that I do than I have ever done. It is a far better rest that I go to than I have ever known. So this is the last line of A Tale of Two Cities. You know what? The opening line of Tale of Cities is important and the ending line is also important. So it is written in 1859 by Charles Dickens. It is a historical novel which is set against the backdrop of French Revolution. And it is following, we have the main character, Sidney Carton, who sacrifices his life in place of another man. Why? To save the woman he loves. So this famous closing line, it captures his redemption transformation. That is, he once wasted life finding ultimate meaning and peace through selfless sacrifice. That's why he says, it is far better thing that I do than I have ever done. It is a far better rest that I go than I have ever known. Okay. So it is talking about, it is actually a contrast what he do and what he wanted to do. Then we have, and so as Tiny Tim observed, God bless us, everyone. And this Tiny Tim, this character, you will find in Charles Dickens' works, A Christmas Carol, written in 1843, the early work. It is actually a novella which is following the miserly Ebenezer Scrooge. The main is Ebenezer Scrooge, who is transformed by visiting spirits on Christmas Eve into a generous and caring man. So this is line actually spoken by Tiny Tim. Okay, and it is closes the story on a note of triumph. Here he was a winner, and he was cementing that novels is giving a good message, which is about compassion and redemption. Okay, because he's saying that God bless us, everyone. That is redemption and compassion. Now look at this line. Lastly, she pictured to herself how this same little sister of hers would, in the after time, be herself a grown woman, and how she would keep through all her riper years. It is on maturity, growth, the simple and loving heart of her childhood, and how she would gather about her other little children and make their eyes bright and eager with many a strange tale, perhaps even with the dream of Wonderland. And how she would feel with all their simple sorrows and find a pleasure in all their simple joys, remembering her own child life and the happy summer days. So you will find there is a transformation, and it is talking about Wonderland. So this is example, so this is the last line of Alice Adventure in Wonderland. It was written in 1860, okay, and it was written by Lewis Carroll. So it is actually a children's fantasy. It is a real dream through his nonsensical world full of strange creatures and logic-defying events. So this novel closes by framing the entire adventure as a childhood memory, shifting from Alice's perspective of nostalgic reflection on the innocence and imagination of youth. I just said it is about a transformation, maturity, youth. It is her imagination that one day I will be like this. So much of life in its meshes. She called in her soul to come and see. So this is the famous line, if you know, that her soul to come and see. This is your clue. Taken from Their Eyes Were Watching God, written in 1937 by Zora Neale Hutchinson. Okay. So it is actually example of Harlem Renaissance, a feminist novel, which is following the main character is Jenny Crawford and his several relationship towards self-discovery and independence in the early 20th century. So this ending shows her at peace, having achieved genuine self-knowledge and spiritual fulfillment. So it is actually a landmark moment of Black female interiority in American literature. Okay, if you know the story, so then you will get to know that yes, if you know the story, that this explores a Black woman journey from a voiceless girl, that is Jenny Crawford, and she became she wanted to be an independent and self-assured woman. Okay, and it tells about her experience through love, loss, and three distinguished marriage in the rural South. So this can be a question. It is telling about you, American South, the customs there. Who knows but that on the lower frequencies, I speak for you. Okay, so this is actually an African American modernist novel following an American racism. So this novel is on racism. So it is taken from Invisible Man, written in 1952 by Ralph Ellison. Okay, and it is on racism. This line is ending with a lively, invisibly underground. Okay, this is the ending line, and it tells about rejecting the various ideologies that try to define racism. Okay, and this closing line, it breaks the fourth wall. What is the fourth wall? Directly addressing the reader and suggesting them about their individual story of invisibility, which speaks for much a wider and universal experience. Okay, so we'll find there is an unnamed narrator. So there is an unnamed narrator who tells you about the racism, and he wants to tell you that, and he actually telling you, and he is actually telling directly to you that read this work and be with you, be individual. There is actually an unnamed black narrator who is talking about the oppressive and racism structure of that society of America. And he is telling you directly to the readers that he is a figuratively invisible. Why? Because people refuse to see him as an individual. And that's why the title is Invisible Man. Okay. Last, so the 30th, the last is that, yes, they will tremble me underfoot, the numbers marching 1, 2, 3, 400 millions, 506, reducing me to specks of voiceless dust, just as in all good time they will tremble my son who is not my son, and his son who is not be his, and his who will not be his until the 1,001st generation, until 1,001 midnights have bestowed their terrible gift, and 1,001 children have died, because it is the privilege and the curse of midnight's children. So this is our work, to be both master and victim of their times, for to forsake privacy and be sucked into the annihilating whirlpool of the multitude, and to be unable to live or die in peace. So you get idea that it is taken from A Midnight Children, written by Salman Rushdie in 1981. It is a post-colonial magic realist novel which is following the character where we have Salim Sinai, okay, who was born at exact moment of India's independence, and his life is a supernaturally and allegorically. Okay, and this final sentence, he reflects the novel's central idea. Actually, if you know that he has given you the conclusion of complete novel, that Salim, like India itself, he can never have an individual and private fate, okay, like another one. So he is forever bound to and consumed by the destiny of the masses, okay. So he is actually representing India. This is all about our today's lecture. Hope you like this video, and hope you all are doing best for your paper. This is the time for revision. So try to invest your time in revision and revising your own notes. Okay, so revise your notes properly and multiple times. Bye bye. Take care.